Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones. Glad that you guys can be with us today. Got 2 episodes for you coming up this week. The first one is with a good friend of mine, Charlie Bunting. You might know him from one of our earliest episodes titled The Spy Who Shagged Me. That was a misleading title. We have never actually engaged in that. Charlie he has very high standards that I don't meet, but he has agreed to come back on the podcast. We had a good chat today. Charlie was a spook. He was a spy, basically. I did 3 tours. He did 3 tours over in Iraq. It was a very interesting past. Now he works as a movie producer. Has his fingers in a lot of pies. He's involved with the charity MVP from our equally good friend Nate Boyer, friend of the podcast. So we had a lot to talk about. It was good to have him back on. I got a bit carried away in this podcast, got a bit excited to have Charlie on, so you'll be able to hear that. It was great. It's great to catch up with him. Haven't seen him since I was last over in New York, and that's one of the great things about this podcast. And one of the reasons I recommend that anybody start their own, because it gives you a great excuse to block out time and talk to your friends, basically. Before we get into it, I just want to say a big thank you to Combat Fuel. I have been loving using their supplements over the past probably like 6 weeks now. I have just come into the studio after a lovely session in the sunshine, pumping the guns using their pre-workout. I use them both. They've got 2. One of them doesn't have caffeine. It's a pump supplement. You get a lovely pump on that one. I've been using the caffeine one the last few days. I've been having early-ish starts for me. And by the time it rolls around to late afternoon and it's time for training, then I like a bit of caffeine in the system. So I've been using their pre-workout for that. Not having any nasty crashes off the back of it. Haven't shit myself yet, which is always a bonus with pre-workout. I'm really, really loving it. And the vegan protein I use too. And I recommend them both to you. Check them out. A Combat Fuel. Everything is tagged up in the show notes. Because let's be honest, who types something in while they're listening to a podcast? Nobody does, do they? But you can go down the show notes and you can find it all in there. But let's just get into today's podcast, guys. I'm really excited to have Charlie on. Oh, one more on the Combat Fuel before I forget. For all you squaddies listening out there, it is passed by Informed Sports. So you don't have to worry about failing a CDT and getting kicked out by the army because you were trying to get your gains on, which, you know, seems bonkers to me that they kick people out for trying to get fitter, but there you go. Just keep the fatties in, innit? Army. Stupid. Right. Fucking hell. Before I go off on a tangent too far about why I think all that stuff is a load of bollocks, too late, already gone down it, let's welcome Charlie to the podcast. Give it up for Mr. Charlie Bunting. Charlie, welcome back to the motherfucking podcast. I had to get the first F-bomb in just to let you off the hook with your parents.
Yeah, my mom tried to play it in her studio. She's an artist and had to shut it down because people came in to buy her paintings, and apparently every 4th word was an F-bomb. So I'm going to work very hard to censor appropriately and use proper language.
Maybe she could just get a reputation for having a very kind of cutting edge, you know, like an edgy art studio, and she might change the clientele up a bit, but you know what, people might start coming into that bit, and then she can start doing heroin out in the back.
Yeah, fuck Gagosian. Here comes Diana. Yes, I like
I have like a little shoot up room in there and all that kind of stuff. You know, like real art, proper stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on, man? You were guest number 8 or something, or maybe no, you weren't even guest number 8. You were a guest earlier than 8 because first 4 episodes was Alex.
Yeah.
So you were like one of our first 5 guests probably, and here you are again. Glad you haven't committed suicide in the intervening time. That's always a worry we have with our guests.
I know that it's well, obviously it's something that you want to. I mean, it's a serious subject, and you want to be careful about. But no, it's this has been I mean, for God's sakes, you know, just try to keep it together and reach out for help. It's not that complicated. I've done, you know, reasonably well. I mean, this is the twilight zone, I think, for everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're a vet dealing with issues or an alcoholic dealing with issues or a normal ass person dealing with issues. This is not, you know, this universe is shifted for everybody. And in a lot of ways, I think it's binary. You know, I sit here and I lasted about 7 weeks in my apartment in Hoboken when everything was in serious lockdown.
Hang on, you got to explain to British. Remember, we have British listeners here, many of whom are from the infantry. So you, so we
Yeah.
have to break. So where's Hoboken?
Sorry, excuse me. Well, I know England fairly well, and where Leeds and Yorkshire and all these other places are, right? Aren't those towns?
Yeah, but that you were also like a spy and you went to a good school. Many of our noble listeners are what Wellington referred to as the scum of the earth.
The scum.
And
He
so,
was kind of a
and they
badass,
know,
but
and I include myself amongst them.
well, I cannot, and this is not spy bullshit. I love England. I loved working with the Brits in Iraq. I really appreciated the SIS providing the alcohol courtesy of Her Majesty's government.
Hmm.
Also, in a slight effort to ply us out of more information, although they could have just asked. But I was more happy to tell it to them while I was drunk.
But what about sexual favors?
Sexual favors? No, they asked me for that. They asked
Yeah.
if it was okay if they could. I think that's common among the. But that was SAS that most of them went to. We call it boarding school, and you call it what?
You must have been dealing with the officers then.
No, 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 no. It was your spies, your SIS. What do you call them? Your agent handlers.
No. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Those guys.
people,
Yeah.
people, people named Reese, right?
Hmm.
And they all went to Harrow and Eton and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So they did more.
those aren't your SAS troopers. Your SAS troopers tend to be from They tend to be from council estates.
I had a little more. I had a little more fun with them. Those guys were great. But I did get in a lot of trouble once because I unfortunately was not in a state where I could be returned properly to the green zone, and spent the night inside the SIS station in Baghdad,
Hmm.
and a number of people got in deep trouble. Although I could assure you, I was not poking around in the middle of
Hmm.
the night. I believe I was trying not to vomit. So
I mean, that is a noble endeavor in itself. So let's get back to Hoboken then.
yes.
What the fuck has been going on in New York City, dude? Like you, so so just so people know, yeah.
So Hoboken is where fucking Frank Sinatra is born, right? It's where baseball is from. Okay, you look over,
Well,
you
fuck
look
that place, and
over.
I hate
No,
baseball.
watch your fucking language. You look over at all of New York City, at all these dumb fucks who spend 20 grand to stare at fucking New Jersey, right? And then we get to look at Manhattan, and it's a nice smaller town, great mozzarella. We call it Moots. Prosciutto is prosciutto. It's all Italian. It's a really cool place. It's getting gentrified, so now there's yoga studios and stoner pizza places, which is fine with me. But so essentially, it is a 7-minute underground train into Manhattan, and then and you're in New York. So, and I love it because I've been in New York a long time. It has a certain level of energy that just I found exhausting, and instead I get a much bigger place. It's a lot cheaper, and then I'm in the city in the West Village in 7 or 8 minutes. So I did spend a lot of time in New York. I remember the last day that I went to New York. It was when you remember this was all chaos, right? People are walking around with handmade bandanas and they're lysoling their shoes, and and there's basically I got to look like a terrorist psychopath. I got to wear black gloves and a dark green keffiyeh, and that was cool. That was encouraged, and I was like,
Yeah.
I look like I'm going to go rob a bank and kill people, or maybe both at the same time, but that's actually healthy. So when I went to New York for the last time, I had to go pick something up, and I saw four mortuary trucks or morgue trucks. You can see them, they drip water out of the back with a police escort. And I said, "Fuck this! I'm never coming back into the city," and I haven't. So
Hmm.
so Hoboken is actually it's 55,000 people in 1 square mile, so it's the most densely populated city in the United States. And it also has a very strong kind of community where people listened and kind of obeyed the rules. And I think up to date now, after 7 months, there's only been 29 people who've died, if you can believe it. Across the river, it was unfortunately thousands. So um,
But isn't that also down to putting sick people in old people's homes? It didn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was. I mean, there were things that could have been, I sound like a politician, handled differently. I don't know, man. Anytime you see some of these guys trying to make decisions on this, if they're making them in good faith and they're not being politicians, they don't really know what's happening, and nobody did. So, I thought that New York responded Fairly well. I at least like to see the Cuomo briefings at first because it offered a some appearance of a measured response and a coordinated effort. He wasn't perfect. I thought later, and we can talk about the police and the riots and the protests
Mm.
because that took a different take on him then. But he um, compared to our malignant narcissist president, offered some measure of here's what we're doing, here's how we're trying to solve the problems, here's what you should do. And I think people need that in a time of crisis. And I don't need to tell that to anybody from Britain because of the leadership of men like Winston Churchill, who just had frank conversations telling the country what the fuck was going on in the middle of a crisis. God forbid, that be the case where people can at least
Mm.
understand, what the reality is. And FDR was great about that, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that was the experience.
Fuck Winston Churchill now, mate. Apparently,
What now?
but I think Britain's decided to fuck Winston Churchill now because he said some disparaging remarks about women in his time. So fuck him. Apparently, everything else he did doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I think we were already in trouble, you and I, regardless. So it doesn't really matter, right? So I don't think anyone's going to look back in history and be like, God, those guys really said inappropriate shit. We're already there. So at least we're doing it in real time. But so go back and nail Marcus Aurelius for having slaves. Is that what we do? I mean, where do we?
Dude, that's so funny. Like I've seen some and this is one of the things I've been saying is there's a lot of authors and people who I really admire their work, and I admire them as people who I have some real kind of issues with what they're saying, and it doesn't mean that I want them cancelled, that I stop following them, but we just have some disagreements. And so one of these guys would be like, he's so he's so kind of like woke with all this stuff, and then he's posting Marcus Aurelius meditations every day, and it's like, well, where do you draw the line, dude? Like, Marcus Aurelius owned slaves. We all now agree that that's not something that people should do. But it's accepted I'm going to go to Rome. I'm going to go on holiday. I'm going to go marvel at the Colosseum, where slaves were put to death.
Exactly.
And, but it's like, that's okay. But then 200 years ago is not okay. Like, who was it that then decided whether it was like, right, after 200 years ago, yeah, tough shit. If there's slavery, doesn't matter, get over it. Because that's essentially what they're saying. Oh, you're Welsh and the English have taken your country, get over it. Oh, well, this happened to me 200 years ago. Oh, well, we better pull some statues down.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And well, frankly, it was you who decided that slavery was inappropriate about 200 years ago, before we did, by about what, 40 or 50 years, I think.
By you mean the Great Britain?
Yes, not you,
not me,
you
Geraint
personally.
Jones. Although I was probably reincarnated at that point as some prominent member of society.
Yeah, you were a Rhodesian, which they can't call Rhodesia anymore, and
Oh God.
and so. Here's the larger challenge that I think that we face. These aren't discussions anymore. They're enabled by kind of a fast, sharp opinion meant to provoke, and or more importantly, meant to appear as if people are joining the popular herd. And then there is a complete lack of dialogue about what it is that we are upset about. How can we learn? This idea of compromises effectively from this is Hegel, the philosopher, who said, two people can disagree, but come to some shared understanding where they respect each other and tolerate themselves. I mean, that's God forbid that actually happen these days. Everything is so binary, and everybody gets accused of something so quickly with no basis for that kind of a judgment, nor any interest in learning from somebody's experience, or what I think is more important, learning from history, from the historical standpoint. And I listen to our first podcast every night before I go to sleep, and it we talked about all this. Do you remember that?
Did we?
Yep.
No.
Yes, we did, because
I have a wank before I go to sleep.
Yeah, well, no, I do it. I do it during the podcast. I mean,
Okay.
It's only when you're speaking, right? That's only it's so
moist.
Moist. But no, we discussed this because we talked about how I attended the Virginia Military Institute, where Stonewall Jackson was a professor, and where the Corps of Cadets fought in the Civil War for the Confederacy. You said, well, is that controversial? And I said, not really. They were ordered to do so by what was then their country. And they marched up and they were 17 years old. And the two-star generals said essentially their center line was breaking in the battle. And they were held in the reserves. And they said, may God forgive me for the order, but put the boys in. And they immediately assembled and then marched in a straight parade line and turned the tide of the battle itself and charged and took two Union cannon. But you made the remark that I agree with also, that soldiers don't have a choice where they're fighting and who they're fighting for and how that works, especially at that age. And you've done that, with your books on Rome, right? I mean, these guys, had to go and fight where they were told and where they were paid, and that was part of their obligation as a legion. Regardless, I think the totality of the American experience and history needs to include everything. And I don't think passing judgment now on our past with what we've learned now is an effective means to understand the evolution of this country and its value and its greatness and its flaws. So
I kind of look at it like this. It's like, you're trying to evolve as a person, right? And if you look at who you were 10 years ago, you might not like that person. You might have been someone who cheated in relationships. You might have been someone that stole from people. I like to think that there's a path to redemption for everybody. And not many people are kind of born in their best selves. I think it's something you have to work on. And,
right.
If, for instance, with PTSD or any kind of mental health issues, if you just decided, right, instead of trying to work on myself every day and recognizing there's mistakes and we're going to work on it, instead I'm just going to get angry and beat myself up every day, you'd say, well, how the fuck do you expect to heal by doing that?
Right.
So if that's on the individual level, I think it's fair to say that works on a national level too.
And I think you and I are both guilty of doing exactly that. For some reason, for me, I found a completely illogical catharsis in beating myself up, especially right after I left and after my third tour in Iraq. If I could beat myself up and make myself feel bad about myself, I was somehow self-flagellation, where you're punishing yourself and somehow therefore atoning for sins that you believe that you're guilty of because you're not serving your country anymore, or you're not with your friends, or your friends didn't come home, or frankly, this transformation into for a while I literally thought I was a bad person. I'm not, but it was in my head. It was this weird kind of fraud complex. And it's one of these things I think that's unique to a military or intelligence experience. And I'd love to hear what you think about it, because I don't think people talk about it enough. And it's such a big part of the veteran ethos and identity, right? You are told that this is who the fuck you are. You are only a soldier. You are the most important element of your country and the bravest, and this is all you can do, and it's all you do all the time, and there is no break from it. So you don't have this Carl Jung kind of mask that you take off, because if you're a fucking teacher and you come home and you have dinner, this is you all the time. And it's the same thing with being a spy, right? That you're Captain America. There's less of you than there are players in the NFL. You're that important. Blah 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 blah. We spent $2 million in your training. All this shit that goes into you, that you buy into because you care about your country and that's why you're serving in the first place, that when that's detached, you're in deep shit because you don't really have an identity. God forbid you have, or any job prospects or anything, right? So I think that's something that you identified that's important. And the flip side that I wanted to talk with you about and hear what you think about is, this is, veteran state of mind, and this is what we talk about, but we don't just sit here and talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, right? We talk about the larger world from our unique perspective, which is important, and people need to hear that. Um, and I supported. I opened. I was very, very fortunate. I didn't write the checks, right? But I was very fortunate to raise $200,000 to open MVP New York. So we're live. We're live on Zoom. But
Explain to people about MVP.
yes, sorry. It's right near Hoboken for the British listeners. That's another joke. Sorry, it didn't land. The MVP.
Sorry, mate. I know that feeling.
Can you laugh for me, dude? Can I? It's watching an American baseball game. That's another reference that doesn't work. Shit.
Ugh.
To cricket where they play fake noise. All right. Anyway.
All right. Okay. Here's the thing, though. Hang on. I'm going to stop you there. Right. When people always I fucking hate baseball, and they're like, "Well, you got cricket." I don't know anyone who watches cricket. Right. I didn't go to Harrow or Eton. Right. So don't be coming at me with, "Oh, well, you guys got cricket." They're both shit.
Nope.
It's like saying, "Oh, well, you've got fucking ass cancer and I've got AIDS."
And you've got a bat, right? And a wicket and a something.
I don't know, mate. I'm not from Harrow or Eton. I've told you. I have a rugby ball.
You told me you could throw a googly.
What? I don't even know what that is. The only thing I can fucking I can Googly some fucking Eastern European dungeon porn, but I don't know about throw a fucking googly, mate. But yeah, so right, just for the record.
Right,
hang on. Before we move on, baseball is shit. Cricket is shit. Right there. We're moving on. If no one gets hit, if no one's getting concussion, it's not a fucking sport. End of.
I played lacrosse in college. I know about getting hit. I just like the Boston Red Sox, and my dog is named Fenway after Fenway Park. So I'm in a little deep, okay? Just so you are sensitive to my triggers.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that's the last time we're ever having a baseball conversation on this podcast. Okay. All right, explain to people what MVP is.
So MVP is Merging Vets and Players, and it's a unique veterans organization in that it combines combat veterans and former professional athletes together in a very simple format where for an hour we work out together with a combination of calisthenics and then MMA light. And then after that hour, after a good sweat, after kind of pairing off with everybody else and kind of getting to know everybody, like physically, and no, I don't mean it like that, but you know what it's like to.
I've been at MVP. I met that asshole of the guy who founded it. What's his name? I hate him.
Colin,
Nate Boyer, something like that.
Nate Boyer. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, some kind of dweeb. I think he was in the Air Force or something.
I think he was in the Air Force. I think he was
he was like a clerk in the Air Force.
Supply sergeant. Yeah, no,
something like that.
And his annoyingly handsome smile, it really just aggravates me every time.
Yeah, aggravates my trousers.
Yeah, I bet it does. So he founded this organization, and so the point being, you literally release endorphins and calm your mind as you work out together and then start to meet everybody as a team. Then, more importantly, we take an hour and sit down in a huddle and go around the room and just talk about what's up. But we do it in an environment where everybody knows that you're in you're essentially in a...
Don't say safe space.
I'm not going to... I don't say...
I was going to say a secure perimeter. That makes it sound like way less fluffy.
I was use a spy term called a skiff, but that doesn't make any sense. So you're basically in a classified area, right, where nothing will leave that, no information will leave that area because you're able to share really what's going on. Mm-hmm. And one of the great things about it is, people will open up and then they will receive feedback. So any of us, and I've been to plenty of them who have gone to, quote, group, you say something and then the next person.
Sorry, by group, you mean group therapy?
Yeah, sorry, group therapy, right. So if you go to group therapy, a lot of times you're saying what's on your mind and then the next person says what's on the mind. Every time I've done that, I've said what's on my mind and I said, anybody going to fucking give me some feedback? I just described a massive problem that's debilitating me. Can anybody, before Karen shares about the dog, I would like somebody to tell me what I should do. So that's not the case here. So you
God,
have
sounds awful.
right. So you'll have immediate kind of back and forth and support. And I remember the first the first one that I went to. I was tasked by you told me I was name dropping, so I'm not going to say that his name was Randy Couture, who asked me to produce the to open up New York. I went out to LA to see how it worked. And the first person who raised his hand after the workout said, "Hey, I don't really have a whole lot to talk about. Just want to let you guys know I've got 7 months not smoking heroin today."
Whoa.
And that's when I said, "Oh, here we go." I mean,
Mm.
I was so thrilled that somebody was open about that. And he was a big, tough looking dude. I mean, this was, he was clearly opening up about it and getting a lot of support. And then it goes down to shit, I think I'm going to lose a job. And I heard that when I went to Randy's gym in Vegas where they
Mm.
hold MVP. And immediately 5 hands go up. Are you good with working outside? Do you want to go to the Bellagio? I mean, it's Vegas, right? So it's,
Mm.
casinos and stuff. But there were options for people to help each
Yeah.
other in a real way and to stay connected. And there's not a single person in one of those rooms who would not be at your doorstep within 10 or 15 minutes if you said, "Shit, man, I think I'm going down." And
Mm-hmm.
that's the most important part. The professional athletes, and I've received some flack for this in the past, of why are they with our Warriors? And you're like, why are you typing on fucking Facebook? And these guys have, if you think about it, they've been playing each of these sports, let's say football, since they were 7, right? They've now graduated from college where they're playing in front of 70,000 people into the National Football League, where sadly their life expectancy as a player is 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Just for right? Just I just want to make sure people don't get confused here because we do have a bunch of crayon eaters listening, and I love you guys. But life expectancy means career, right? We're not that these guys will die within 3 years.
I said
That
I
this life.
I said as I
Yeah,
said as players.
I know, dude, but I'm making it clear because I know otherwise that people will get the wrong impression. For most of those people as well, that's on like the NFL minimum as well.
That's on the NFL minimum, right? And which is, I think, $40,000. And people say, "Oh man, that's a lot of money." Do the math, right? Try to pull that shit in New York. That means it's $200,000, and it's only 3 years. And a lot of these guys have not come from the best parts of America and are trying to give back and spread money across their families. So they're not in the best positions possible. Also, they've been exalted as heroes and they've been famous and they've been doing this for a long time. So they share in common with us a loss of purpose, a loss of identity, and a loss of a tribe.
Hmm.
And so we can work together to help each other out, and it works. The only challenge is when you get one of these guys who's um, about a meter taller than me, and I'm trying to punch his pad. He's
Yeah.
holding it up, and I'm just jumping up and down. So but that's been the focus of the program. It's expanded to now 5 cities, which we're very happy about.
That's awesome.
And I think with regard to these veteran organizations, there's too many of them. Most of them don't do shit. They're a mechanism for somebody to show that they're the head of a veterans organization in America. There's 50,000 of them, and they're all just 501c3s with a fucking plate on a door, and that's it. But this one I've seen change lives, and it's through simplicity. Once a week, 2 hours, come and hang out with these guys and talk in a way that you know what it's like to talk to another vet. Like if you haven't done that in a while, all of a sudden your guard goes down and you're able to just kind of have a relaxed conversation with somebody who's been through a very similar experience, and you have the opportunity to do that more often because of what you're doing. But in America, it's 1% of the population is serving, and I believe it's 3% are veterans, and we're
Hmm.
effectively isolated. This is not Israel, right? This isn't 70% of the population that serve their country. So yeah, it's been a privilege to help them. New York City is a big deal. It was much more expensive than the other cities because it's New York, and there's 200,000 veterans there. So
Really?
we're looking to open a second a second off or platform there as well.
So I want to speak to MVP because, so that the Air Force sergeant we was talking about, he pretends that he was a Green Beret. Now he was a Green Beret. He was also the oldest rookie in the NFL, Nate Boyer. So before
Right.
people think we're actually talking about, again, I forget that some of our listeners are not clued in on, say, the American side of things. But we both love Nate. He's a really impressive dude.
He is.
And I know you love Randy. And I told you about, I ended up sitting next to Randy on a flight. I told
Yeah,
you about
he
you,
did.
right?
Isn't he
That
great?
was that was so funny, dude. Because well, I don't know, because I got on that flight and I was the last one to board because I was late because I was in Vegas. I hadn't been to bed,
You a little,
and
you a little banged up.
I got in there and he looked up. He had like a flat cap on and he looked up
Yeah.
and he like kind of smiled because he just saw this guy like struggling in his suite.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, it's Randy Couture. So I was like, hey, dude, like I'm friends with like Nate, and because like obviously he read the MVP script that me and Nate did because like he's a part of that kind of project. And then he was like, and then he's like, you doing okay? And I'm like, I think I need to go sleep. So when we landed on the other end. We had like a bit of a talk, but it was funny because it's like, here's one of my like UFC kind of legends. I literally couldn't keep my fucking eyes closed. But what's so cool about like those, like, having those, like you said, like I can't imagine going to group therapy and wanting to talk in front of a bunch of strangers. But when I went to MVP with Nate in LA, it was I can't even describe it, like such a kind of like relaxed atmosphere that people were just throwing stuff out. But what was cool about it as well is there's nobody says you have to talk either.
No.
You could just shut the fuck up. You could go to 100 sessions and never say a word, and that's fine. You're not going to get pushed into saying anything. And I think it wasn't like, now we're going to go around the circle and everyone's going to talk. It just felt like an organic discussion.
Yes.
And there was some leaders, like obviously Nate is one of the leaders.
Right.
And like, Denver, I want to shout Denver out, love Denver. Like you got these guys, and then they start talking, and then, it's like the military. There's leaders in the group and other people, and they might be able to tease something out of someone. And I just thought it was such a fucking awesome thing. I mean, I was sold on the way that it ran. I actually got approached by a rugby club out here who were looking to do the same kind of thing as it happened, and I was like, look, you need to check out my buddy's company.
Yeah.
So not company, sorry, charity, because I was like, well, they've already cracked the formula. But I think it's a great thing to do, dude. How has coronavirus? How has that affected MVP?
So, well, we have to do Zoom sessions, which is not, it's not ideal, but it's better to, it's kind of less of the workout and more of the ability to, talk and share about what's going on. And, with these things, it's really important to listen, right? And kind of absorb where somebody's coming from. And, it's a ability to, you know, empathy is not the strongest thing that I'm able to do. And so when you're listening to somebody who's been through some shit and they're opening up about it and they're being tough and brave, you want to listen, you want to hear. And then, you also want to kind of think about how you might be able to help, even if it's just giving a phone number and giving them a hug or something like that. So that has been now you can't give up, a hug, but at the very least, having a virtual ability to connect with everybody, it's all we got. There's no other way to do it, unfortunately. But as soon as we can and we're cleared again, and it actually looks on deck for the next in the next couple of months with regard to opening up gyms. I'm not sure how that's going to work exactly for us, but we're at Renzo Gracie's gym in New York, the famous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master and family. So we've got a great space. It's right by Penn Station, and everything is ideal and set up. So we can't wait to get back in there. But I also don't want to put too fine a point on. I was just able to raise money and connect with the different networks to get New York going. These guys, the story of MVP and how it came up and how Nate was going to homeless shelters with veterans and talking to people, and how a couple of those guys are now the program directors. I mean, this was a totally organic growth, right? That came out of work and concern, and this wasn't some big flashy thing where people get to post on Instagram that they're doing, XYZ. This came from the earth, and Nate does deserve a lot of credit, and he is a wonderful guy, and it's very difficult to say that because of the quality of our text messages that you're on as well. But the other thing that I heard, and you've probably heard this before, is that you'll have, three veterans and they'll sit there and they'll talk to each other and be like, "You're the biggest piece of shit. You smell so disgusting." And then they'll turn around. There's another person walks by and be like, "That guy, he's the bravest human I've ever seen. Seriously, that guy is a hero." And then they'll turn back and be like, "I hate you so much." That's our way of saying I love you, right? In a weird way. And that we're proud of our friends too. So that's why we get to rib Nate, but we're very proud of what he's done.
Yeah, he gets pissed at me because I always put really inappropriate stuff in our emails, and then he can't forward them on to the people that we're working with. But then he should have.
Well,
he should never have let me. No, hang on. He just should never let me know that, but though, because then now I'm like, now I just aspire to make worse and worse email titles every time I send them to him.
Your email to me was the greatest email I've ever. Maybe the greatest email I've ever received. Can we share it with the listeners? Can they handle it?
Sure. I can't remember it, but so this might be something we have to edit out.
Okay, look, there is dark and there's the fucking abyss, okay? So we're going to go down into the abyss for humor.
Oh, Christ.
Here we go. So, Charlie, who, even though I'm a gigantic smartass and I talk a lot of shit, I'm also one of these guys who will, literally start like crying in the middle of a commercial or getting teared up for whatever. And I'm a big baby inside and sensitive. I, after the podcast, wrote you and Nate a long note saying thank you so much for this opportunity because, frankly, as a former spy, we don't have a fucking VA. Mm-hmm. There aren't a lot of us. Nobody supports us. We get no mental care, no health care. Not a fucking thing. Now, you know what? I'm glad because the VA sucks. But there literally is no mechanism for recognition, nor do we get considered technically veterans. Even though I pulled 3 tours with a classified special operations unit running around in a local Toyota with a fucking HK-416 next to my leg, which, based on my experience, was more dangerous than a fair amount of the guys who are running around eating cake on Camp Victory. So, that's one of the reasons that we have to kind of keep that in, and we can't connect with a lot of people, and we're kind of considered in this limbo. And people are like, "Oh, were you a contractor?" And I was like, "No, I was trained by CAA. I worked for the whatever." So I wrote you this note saying this really helped get this out. I felt that it was cathartic. And it was important to me, and I feel better. And thank you both for the opportunity, right? And I was sincere. God forbid I was sincere to you two disgusting maniacs. And the note that I got back from you was, "Dear Charlie, I'm very sorry to report, but we've had to pull the podcast down because there have been 13 suicides since people have listened to it."
I didn't say that.
I have the email, dude. It's electronic. I don't think of that.
I mean, that's pretty funny. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back with that one.
You give yourself a pat on the back. First of all, my heart stopped for about 2 seconds, and then I scrolled down, and I was like, "He is joking. Oh my god,
I don't know. I'll probably be drinking.
What? And dude, it was beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, it was it's you don't look if you can't make fun of something, I'm sorry. And it offends you, fuck off. Tough shit. The only way to really process what's going on when things are crazy, like COVID or anything from racism, there needs to be some kind of a sense of humor. Otherwise, you can't. It's during the war, right? The thing that what did we watch when I was at Delta's compound over and over and over again? Team America.
Mm.
The movie about puppets going around and blowing shit up all over the place, where the terrorists say Durka Durka Muhammad Jihad. And I heard some of the interrogators say Durka Durka, and I was like, dude, you can't say Durka Durka. Like that's from the movie. It's South Park. But that was a way to at least process the craziness that was going on. You do that through humor. You do that through people like Mel Brooks, who, incidentally, if you can believe it, went to the Virginia Military Institute for training before he went and served in World War II. But there was a meme that I saw for the movie, one of the greatest comedies ever, Blazing Saddles. And the meme said, this evening's presentation of Blazing Saddles has been edited for racist content and humor. It will now run from 8 p.m. to 8:04 p.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my only point is, and I'm not going to sit here and make any kind of jokes that are going to get me in trouble, but, being able to laugh at things helps you understand them and appreciate them, and staying serious all the time is not healthy, and I don't think you know is, I don't know, stable mentally, at least. So
No, for sure, dude. And like people say, if you can't laugh, you'll cry. I actually have another thing for that. I think it's if you can't laugh, you'll fight. And I think we see that.
Yeah.
And we think we're seeing that a lot of time all the while now. I think as well as people, like, I don't have the right to say to anybody that, hey, this is the gender you need to assume or anything like that. I don't have the right to tell that to somebody. I also don't think as people we have the right to tell somebody else, this is what you're allowed to find funny and this is what you're not allowed to funny.
Sure.
Like, I think some of us will, like those of us with darker humors probably do so, have those for a reason. We've probably always been quite depressed kind of people. We need to find the funny side of stuff to help us cope. And I think it's morally wrong to tell somebody that just because you find something not funny or you find something offensive that they shouldn't be, like, because you're basically saying like, right, well, that might be your coping mechanism as a person, but I'm taking away from you. I honestly don't see that as any different from me saying to someone that identifies, say a man that identifies as a woman, I have no right to tell that person, this is how you should dress, this is how you should behave. I have no right to. And I don't think someone has the right to tell someone what they find funny and how they should express that. If you don't like it, move the fuck on, and let people do them.
I agree, and it's also, I would imagine it gets exhausting just walking around getting pissed at people for whatever they do. I mean, how is somebody else the judge of another, human and their behavior? I mean, I think one of the things that we enjoy with the freedoms that we have in the UK and America is, okay, go live your life as you want to live it. You have the freedom to do that. That's that's a gift. That's one that's that we've all fought and bled for, frankly. So why not embrace that? And if people say things that you don't like, you don't have to listen to them, and you don't have to chime in. And speaking of Marcus Aurelius, my favorite quote of his is his famous, waste no time arguing what a good man should be and be one. But he has another great quote in Meditations, and it says, "You do not have an obligation to have an opinion on anything." And I remember reading that, and I was like, please tell that to Facebook. Like, I don't know is an answer. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't really have an opinion. So I wish people would do that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I don't know, or I don't know enough about that, or I don't really care. It's all right to not care about certain things as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Like, I don't fucking, there's some things that we should say. Like, aside from stuff like pedophilia, killing children, sex trafficking, there's a few things in life where there's a real line where we should just be like, no, that's not okay. Pretty much everything else is just up to personal fucking taste.
Yeah.
Like when it comes down to it at that point, like there's a few real moral things that should be non-negotiable, and everything else should just be like, I don't give a fuck, mate. You do me, you do you. Just before I came into the studio today, I am not a fan of the organization Black Lives Matter. I'm obviously a true believer in the statement that Black Lives Matter. I think that is self-evident, right?
Right.
But the idea that, like, the organization, I have a massive issue with them, because I believe that if Black Lives truly matter to Black Lives Matter, the organization, they would speak out against all these killings that go on every week in inner cities around America, and they don't. Which makes me question and all of a sudden there's a black man gets killed by the cops and they're all over it.
Yeah.
So I question them as an organisation. My friend is a supporter of them. Good for him. He might see something that I'm not seeing. I might see something that he's not seeing. I'm not going to stop being friends with him because he has a different opinion to me.
Yeah, but people stop being friends with each other over this.
Which is
kind
bullshit
of stuff.
because I know this guy and I love this guy and and it makes me think. Oh, maybe I am wrong on it because I value this guy as one of my best friends. I value this guy.
Yeah.
There's maybe something I'm not seeing here, or maybe there's something he's not seeing, or maybe there's something that we're both not seeing.
Well, and it also comes down to, some of these challenges of, I was talking with a friend of mine. He's like, don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to say whatever I want. I have free speech. So because I don't have the experience of being an African American in America my entire life, I can still have an opinion and or understanding of what is happening culturally and what's happening in our nation. It does not negate your right to have an opinion on anything because that's not your particular identity. Right. So I don't think that people can judge me or I can judge other people because they're not like me either. What it should provoke is a discussion and compromise and understanding of, okay, well, we're in Virginia. This was the capital of the Confederacy. Let's talk about these statues. Let's have a discussion. Let's have the legislature involved. Let's have maybe open it up to a vote. Let's use the actual system of a republic. We're a democracy, but it's formulated as a republic. And let's do it that way with a little bit of time to understand everything that is at play. When you get together and protest, which is the right of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which we, wrote as we after we defeated your country or humiliated your country.
No, sorry, no, hang on. You and who was it? The French?
Yeah.
Why don't you go and eat some freedom fries, you fucker?
Are you kidding, dude? Lafayette's my boy. So no, I'm just teasing. But the point is, you can peaceably assemble and protest, and great. That's your right. But there's a mechanism by which you can enforce these different laws if it's regard to, how police can conduct themselves. If it's in regard to where statues can go or whatever, but not just by running around fucking spray painting them and then just like dragging them down. That's not, that's illegal. And it's not the mechanism by which you can affect change in the United States because we have a system that does that has evolved over time. And if you think about American history, right, remember this. In 1776, you had a Constitution and a Declaration of Independence. Well, the Constitution was later ratified in 1783, but this was written by a homogenous group of incredibly well-educated white men who had been schooled in the democracies of Rome and Greece with a territory that was literally limitless, that they didn't even know the end of, right? They basically had every single thing in their favor, and 90 years later, they had a war that killed 2 million fucking people. So every time that we try to compare other countries' development, we can look at our own and the journey that we've been on, but we should understand it, I think, in that context. And the other thing that I don't understand is this. I read an article about reparations. It was in the New York Times about a month ago. And I said, okay, let's see what the argument is here. The author didn't have the guts to say what she wanted to say until like the last paragraph. I'm sitting here reading, and it's just a bunch of background bullshit. And I'm like, come on, what do you got? And then, she had her justification and then how it would be dispersed and paid out or whatever. And I thought to myself, I think that there are 300,000 dead Union soldiers who fought for and sacrificed their lives for freedom and the end of slavery, and that's a strong reparation in and of itself. I don't know. I'm not allowed to say that, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble, but I don't care. It's one of these things that ought to be, at the very least, acknowledged because of their bravery.
And it's certainly something that is a valid point that should be discussed. It doesn't mean, again, like we're not saying that you're right and she's wrong or anything, but that's an equally valid point. Dude, should the United States even be one country?
I mean, I've never been a big fan of Florida, so
I just don't see. I don't see how you can have a working democracy with over 300 million people and really a two-party system. I just don't see how it can work.
didn't we just talk about the Civil War and how that didn't really work out?
Yeah,
Right?
but look, I honestly think sometimes, like, obviously, like, let's just take slavery aside, which, to be honest, I think would have, like, even if the Confederates had won, slavery would not have lasted forever.
No.
But I just honestly think that America is not supposed to be one country. I don't think you can have, because I'll say this straight, I don't think America is a true democracy.
Mm.
Here's the facts. You are not given the choice of who you want to be president. You are given the choice of two people who are pre-selected for you, really, by the same people that back both sides. You know, it's not true that anybody in America can become president. That's absolute fucking bollocks. We've seen the way that they rig these, the way that they rig these elections. Parties stampede over their own people who are like their best actual candidates are basically steamrolled by the party so that they can put the people they want, the puppets, in charge. It's not a real democracy. And I just think that there's so many.
Yeah, and let's break it down, right? We've got three branches of the government. So the Supreme Court's already set. They're there till they're dead.
Which is ridiculous in itself.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, why should you be there until you basically can't even, feed yourself with Gerber baby food? But also you have you have Congress, and this has been, recent, man. This has been my first job was driving a senator around. I was his body guy. He was a wonderful man. He's still alive. His name's John Warner. He was the chairman of the Armed Services Committee and a Virginia gentleman, married to Elizabeth Taylor. Just wonderful person to work with. You can really tell somebody's character by how they treat their staff, right? And some of these people are bastards, but he's a wonderful person. And I would watch as he sought out different colleagues to reach compromise and to come to agreements and understandings and be moderates. I track the change with Citizens United, frankly, the decision that said that spending money on political campaigns is an expression of free speech. How fucking terrifying is that? And I think that's when now you've seen this massive split and polarization within both the House and the Senate. To make it worse, they call it redistricting, and this is a word that
Is that gerrymandering, is it?
it's yeah no basically they just say, well, if we just put it around this and this, it's all going to be entirely Republican. And you look at the shape of it, it looks like an alligator with a tumor or something.
Yeah.
So they're never really going to change. So that means you have an impasse in Congress where they won't get anything done, of value. Can you imagine them, helping pass the Civil Rights Act? Now, I mean, they just sit around and fight, and then kiss the president's ass. And then you have the election itself with the Electoral College, which makes it even more complicated because you can lose a popular vote and still win. And that was put in the Constitution to respect the rights of the states themselves, not as a just big, larger population. So you have a point, man. I mean, it's not working right now. I hope it somehow gets fixed. I don't know how that's going to work exactly.
It just seems to be the worst of both worlds right now. You've got a country that's trying to act as just one nation on one side, and they're trying to act as states on the other, and it just doesn't work. It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work basically.
But look at what you're a historian, and if you look at I was hopeful that I was stupidly hopeful, right? Because our president's Donald Trump, and he's incompetent, and he has a mood disorder that makes him incapable of effective leadership whatsoever. So, and that's my former case officer spy analysis of his makeup. And if you like Trump, I don't give a shit. I mean, this is literally how the guy's programmed. He can't help it, and he's been a disgrace to our country since he's been in office. So, regardless, I thought to myself, well, this coronavirus, they'll have to appoint somebody to be in charge and to, effectively weaponize our industrial um, capabilities to deal with testing and vaccines and everything that we would need to do. Because if you remember during World War II, because of General George Marshall, we were making uh, B-29s every 23 fucking minutes. I've got to stand in line for what, like 10 hours to get a fucking swab in my nose? That's what we've come to. So it's clearly broken. And if you leave things like this to the states, it ain't going to work. So I don't know the effective mechanism for which we can nationalize these things, but it's clearly been a gigantic failure. And there are hundreds of, 170,000 people are dead. So.
I think America's fucked, bro. Honestly, I think we're seeing like I think America. People don't realize that America has been an empire. It might not be in the traditional sense that people know, like the British Empire, where you could color in the whole world in a certain color. But if you actually look at influence, it has been, and I think that with what happens usually these empires is they just get too big and they collapse in on themselves because of infighting and dilution of what the original idea and the concept behind that empire was. I think that's happening with America now. I'm not saying it's going to be a spectacular implosion, but I just think that, like, look, put it like this. People in the UK, Portugal, that little country where you don't know about fuck all apart from the fact Madeleine McCann went missing there. Yeah, that used to be an empire. Now look at it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. Angola.
So there you go.
Yes,
these empires come and go, and America is on the downhill swing right now. So is Britain. Like it's one of the things I put on social media today that I think that if you served in Iraq and Afghanistan with the British Army, you would probably be like one of the last expeditionary forces that we ever put in the field for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I think, I hope you're right because we fucking lost. We've lost like the last 4 wars, and nobody seems to say that.
No, not really. It was a total failure. It was a total fucking failure.
We lost. We had total fucking failure. Look at Afghan. What are we doing in Afghanistan? You think you're going to change
heroin,
an
bro. That's what
Afghan
we're doing there.
at all, ever?
Sweet, sweet heroin.
A fucking absolutely ridiculous waste of blood and money. And Iraq, for God's sakes, the experiment with secularization in an Arab country was being run by Saddam. We could have been his boys, and I don't really care about what he does inside the country as long as we know how to control him and how he will behave, rather than having my friends get killed.
Yeah, that's the kind of the argument, isn't it? Because on one hand, it's like, well, we went in there for freedom of your own country, and it's like, well, if that was the case, then it was a failure because more people from your own country ended up dying. And if it was a case of we're going there for the locals, well, it's a failure by that measure too because more people are dead. So either way you look at it, it's a fucking failure. Like, however you want to set the goalposts up, it's a failure. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that because it's the same, again, right, tying it back to what we were saying earlier, that we could fail, that the person that you were 5 years ago could fail in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean that you don't bring out important lessons from those things. So I understand completely why someone might feel totally demoralized if they're like, oh, I went to Afghanistan, it was all for nothing. Well, sure, maybe the end goal wasn't there, but you still probably build bonds you'll never build with anybody else. You still probably learn about yourself,
I don't denigrate our service. I'm very proud of it, and I work hard as you did, and I formed bonds with people that I will have for the rest of my life, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to serve my country. My country said, this is the war you're going to fight. You say, all right, well, that's good. I have the opportunity to do that. I'm good at it. And I, as on a dare from my father, took Arabic in fucking 1997. So I was kind of primed to head over there. But, and that was an honor. So I'm not denigrating that at all. But we have to look at the strategic reality of, how these things keep ending up. And America is like a goldfish. Our memory is 10 seconds. Half of this stuff that we're dealing with, I think, with regard to protests and riots and everything like that, is let's open up a couple history books, right? Let's see what's happened in the history of our country, how things have evolved. If it's not the right history, let's fix it and change it. But let's learn from it, and make adjustments. My dad served in Vietnam, and lost that one too. What was that? That was an expeditionary war in a country that we weren't going to be able to be successful in, and also fought under completely bullshit principles, or just like Iraq, right? We did it again because America kind of likes a war, and we have a huge industrial complex, and so this does happen over and over again, unfortunately.
But it's one of those reasons as well. I think that America's almost tearing itself apart at the moment is because you don't have an external enemy like that. I think that was the whole thing that was going on with Iran at the beginning of the country, beginning of the year, and then it was COVID fucked everything up, and people saw an opportunity to undermine the president, and the president saw an opportunity to try and cement his position. I think that's what was happening with Iran. Is that was going to be the next focus for the American people and the military-industrial complex.
And I mean, dude, like our goodie bag, right? I was just watching. My sister had never seen Tropic Thunder. I was like, oh, sit down, right? And I just sped ahead to the Tom Cruise parts, and but he's like, welcome to the goodie room. We don't have a goodie bag anymore. We don't have enough people, and Iran already is eating our lunch in Iraq right now.
Yeah.
They're in charge. We fucking gave them a country. So now we're going to go fight them. And they really do have an army.
That's so
not
funny,
a bunch of people who just spray things around. I mean, that's a serious disaster that would just kill a ton of people. And they would whip our ass much worse than the Iraqi insurgents would. And people said they're, evil mullahs and blah, 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 blah. America loves a boogeyman, and it's such bullshit because they're rational actors. They have strategic goals and aims. They will back off. They will do things that are in their interest. They're not going to provoke us to a certain degree, or if they do, we can at least hit them to behave a certain manner. But the challenge is, if this is like wrestling, dude. If you don't have a fucking grip on somebody, what are you going to do? You have no ability to try to move them around, or I'm not saying to go and actively engage in combat, but to not even have diplomatic relations is stupid. There's no mechanism by which you can communicate.
It's not only stupid, it's criminal. To not pursue every means at your disposal to avoid the death of your soldiers and citizens is criminal.
No, people just get fired up about that war stuff, man. Those videos, those night vision videos of stuff blowing up and planes taking. They do, seriously. It's good TV. It's good TV, and it ain't your kid, right? So.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, that's the thing, see, and that what fucked me off with Iran so much was when they were ramping up, they started going on about EFPs. Iran supplied the EFPs that killed our troops. Yeah, motherfuckers, you knew about that when it was happening. You didn't do fucking nothing about it then. And now all of a sudden it's convenient, 15 years later, now it's a big deal to you. How about get on your fucking bike and I'm not buying your shit?
No, I remember they kept coming in with the reports of the EFPs, and you're sitting there like, okay, guys, what do we want to do? And you know what I heard? So I listened to this ridiculous speech by David Petraeus, and who was a student actually of my dad's at West Point. Now he was the lower end. One of the guys who was great was Stan McChrystal, and is a great guy, and he had a cool line, and then I'll talk about Petraeus because I want to say something about that. But McChrystal was signing books at this Bloomberg event. My friend invited me, and everybody in that community is first name no matter what. And I walked up to him, and I had to correct him. He was going to call me a different name, and I said, "No, it's Charlie in New York," and he said Charlie, and I said, and we gave each other kind of a hug, and he smiled, he recognized me, and I said, I hadn't told you this. My father's Josiah Bunting, and he taught you at West Point. And he said, your dad's Josiah Bunting? I said, yeah. And he says, he's my hero. And I got to look at him, and I said, mine too. And then we gave each other another big bear hug. I mean, he's like an awesome human being, and regardless of what went down, he's a good man.
Well, hang on, what went down with him was what his staff were making disparaging comments about Obama, right? And there was a reporter. That's what ended his career, right?
I mean, if you left Afghanistan and you're walking around Germany and you're his staff and you're not getting drunk, come on, I cannot imagine how that's not a reality. So I listened to this speech by General Petraeus, and he is completely delusional and an egomaniac. And he's cultivated this reputation for himself as some kind of a massive warrior hero, savior person, despite the humiliation that he's endured, and what he did while he was, commanding forces in Afghanistan, which they quickly pulled him out of anyways to come and run the CIA. And I know lots of people at the CIA, and they fucking hated him. And he proceeded to come to the following conclusion. He somehow won the Iraq War because of his famous surge, and he also refused the opportunity to meet with Soleimani, even though those offers were extended. So there's a couple points. One, surge didn't work. Okay, that's bullshit. It worked because Muqtada Sadr told the Shia to stand down. We paid off the tribes, and they were sick of Al Qaeda. And the rest of Baghdad had already been partitioned, and everybody else had left. There are no doctors or lawyers or anything like that left in the country. But he bravely thumps his chest because it was his massive, victory. And then he talks about how he wouldn't meet with Qasem Soleimani, who's the head of the IRGC Quds Force. Why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you go meet with a guy like every other military battle where you've had a parlay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you go sit with him, look him in the eye. You know he's been killing our guys. We've been killing his guys. Whatever. But at least go in and figure out what the hell you could do, and if there's an agreement, and if not,
Yeah.
but get a sense of the man, right? Rather than just kind of reject it outright and let him keep doing what he's doing. So, which didn't make it just didn't make any sense. And then a friend of mine works at KKR, and he's called Petraeus is called the head of global public affairs. And I went in and I saw the office. It's a broom closet. He doesn't do anything. It's just like a placeholder thing. So how these guys fashion themselves post public life is interesting, and they're either good guys or they're not. But a lot of times they'll put up a facade that people like to buy into because they think it's a somehow heroic.
Petraeus did have a pretty public affair, so he's probably pretty specialist at that.
I mean, I wanted to help him out. I'm like, dude, no, not drafts. That doesn't work anymore. You can't do that.
So I want to get your opinion on one more thing, mate, and then we have to wrap it up because we've got somebody else in after you, because otherwise we could just keep going. And
Sure.
Opinion on the lack of remembrance lights for 9/11 in New York. Is that back on? Because it was cancelled.
It is. Yeah, it is back.
Oh, they brought it back on. And why is that? So, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that in itself is interesting. So just for people listening, basically every year they replace where the Twin Towers stood. They have these big beams of light going up in the city. And they had cancelled it, saying it was COVID, but at the same time they were putting on the MTV Music Awards. And I know they came in for a lot of flack. So they've actually turned the decision around, have they?
Let me double check. I believe that they did because I saw. A friend of mine works at the United War Veterans Council. This is 8/14. Shit, maybe you're right.
Yeah, see, Veteran State of Mind are on the cutting edge of all New York related media outlet stuff.
Nah, there's just a bunch of blasts about how they were going to do it again.
Oh, well, okay. Well, look. Bottom line, it's probably going to change 10 times between now and then anyway, because it's 2 weeks away. What do you think about the idea of not doing it?
I don't understand how there wouldn't be a safe way to make it happen if they can fucking put planes in the air, right?
Dude, even if you have to put guys in fucking full CBRN gear, you can make it happen, right?
Yeah, I think I'd, I wouldn't have any kind of an issue. And then I know you got one more guy signed up. I wanted to mention one thing, and I wanted to kind of ask, how you or if you've thought about it. With regard to veterans organizations and talking about these kinds of things and being able to call people, that's all I think important, and frankly it helps save us in this crazy universe, especially for right now. Do you ever get the sense that at some point you need to let some of it go? Because I'm hitting that point now in my life where I need to say, you know what, we got to move on, and you can't have this on your mind all the time, or just think of yourself as a veteran, or walk around with veteran shit on. I mean, there's a culture of that. I understand it. It's not bad, But part of me now is conflicted where I want to say, okay, I serve my country. I'm happy to talk about it. I wear my memorial bracelet, but there's a self-identification as a veteran that um, I don't know. I'm not passing judgment. It's just something that's kind of hit me in the last few months.
No, absolutely, dude. That's why we're having civilian guests on the podcast now. And we're bringing in more civilian guests, people that haven't even got anything to do with the military. Because I do believe that the veterans can be their own worst enemy. And, I can't transition to Civvy Street when you got no fucking civilian mates and all you do is talk about the military. It's why on the podcast now we tend to not talk about many war stories.
Sure.
I'd rather talk about what people are doing after the military, because you can't. It's like getting over an ex-girlfriend. You can't get over the next ex-girlfriend if you're just crying and wanking over her all the time.
Yeah.
Like you need to be going out and meeting new girls, or guys, or girly guys, whatever you're into. But you can't get past. I can't get past being in the military. You spent all day watching Band of Brothers, and then you've got to like, if you want to move past, you got to. It's like one of these really weird things. It's like it's so simple, but it actually just sounds stupid when you say it. How'd you get over being in the military? Just get over being in the military. Stop thinking about it all the time. Stop looking at it.
That's what I've done. I mean, that's literally what this. I don't know. This COVID thing is. For some reason, I picked up spearfishing, and it's basically kind of broken that for me in a good way, because you're out, on your own doing something that's, a little bit dangerous but rewarding and involves a fair amount of failure and stupidity, and you're in a place where you're totally not in control, which is fairly similar to where we were deployed. So
yeah, dude, I think like people have a go at people that say you need to get over it, but you actually do need to get over it, and that's the fucking truth. Like that might not be what people need to hear. Doesn't mean it's easy to get over it. Doesn't mean you can just click your fingers and get over it. But you do need to fucking get over it. Like I said, you cannot just like anyone that's disagreeing with me right now. Just ask yourself this: how do you expect to move past something if you're not willing to move past something? It's very fucking simple.
And you can also use it as strength, right? It is part of you. You're not ignoring it, but you're not walking around with this kind of overwhelming self-identification. Lastly, I gotta plug my new movie, dude.
Oh yes,
awesome. So we are making a new film called The Unit, which is based on the true story of the Israeli commando rescue of the hostages held at Entebbe in Uganda, which was ruled by Idi Amin at the time. The plane was hijacked from Tel Aviv and then diverted. And this was a very, very early version of their Delta Force. And they were at their wits' end. They had, essentially a heavily guarded airport with 200 hostages, already separated Jews from everybody else. So Idi Amin was visiting them every day in his motorcade and checking on the hostages, and staying in touch with the PLO and the Bader Meinhof and all these different bad organizations. That's a massive challenge, right? How the hell is Israel, which is 1,000 miles away, going to rescue hostages in Uganda in a compound on an airfield? So they sat there. They've got 4 Hercules C-130s. And they've got a ton of guns, and they've got a ton of, BLRs, assault vehicles. And the best they could come up with, aside from exchanging a bunch of terrorists, was, well, I guess we just fly these things in and go fuck shit up and hopefully save some of these people, but they're probably not going to make it. Until, as they were looking at all of these pictures and saw they kept seeing his motorcade, they said, hold on a second. Doesn't Mossad have a black Mercedes? And then they thought to themselves, wait a second. They're like, no, it's tan. Be like, fuck that. Go get some black spray paint. They literally spray painted a black Mercedes, put Ugandan flags on it, threw 3 security vehicles on it, and took it out and pretended to be Idi Amin's motorcade, and got right through all of the checkpoints and managed to rescue all of the hostages except for one. And the only Israeli soldier who was killed is actually the brother of the prime minister. His name is Yoni Netanyahu. So that's our next movie, and it's a true story, and it's a pretty amazing one at that. So.
Sounds fucking awesome, dude. Let everyone know where they can find you. They can follow that story and MVP and yourself.
So I'm at Charlie Bunting 13. It's a good British last name. So CHARLIE BUNTING 13 at, what is it, Instagram.com or something?
What? Instagram.com? What are you on about? It's on Instagram.
No, I'm kidding. It's at Charlie. So, but
right,
that's my primary handle, and please follow for updates. We've got a Oscar-winning director on board, so we're thrilled. It's gonna be done right, and it's a hell of a story of heroism and creativity.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Charlie, it was a pleasure having you on, mate. Should do this more often. Before we leave, guys, I want to say a big thank you to not only Combat Fuel, but the Royal British Legion for making today's episode possible. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you do, not only for this podcast, but for veterans in general. Guys, the Royal British Legion have all kinds of stuff going on. They can help out with your mental difficulties. They can help out with your financial difficulties. They can help out with all kinds of things, right? So head over to their site, royalbritishlegion.org.uk. They're tagged up in the show notes. Check out their social media at Royal British Legion. Again, they're down there. You can find everything in your notes on your phone. The reason you should check them out, because you never know when you might be in a bit of difficulty, and more importantly, you never know when one of your muckers might be in a bit of difficulty. So find out this stuff now. Find out what's available to you. Think about this, right? You don't go into a contact and then worry about getting your ammo, do you? You get your ammo all sorted, doing your porpoising. You get everything sorted out, don't you, before you go out on your patrol. And then when you come into contact, you got the ammunition. It's just the same with the Royal British Legion. Find out what ammunition you got from them first before you get out on the grounds of life. How about that one, guys? Thank you, Royal British Legion. Thank you, Combat Fuel. Thank you, you guys, for listening. Thank you for Charlie for coming on. We'll be back in a few days. We have a couple of highly intelligent gentlemen on the podcast. We're going to be talking about blast injuries, mental injuries, and ways of overcoming them, all that kind of stuff. We got a very sciencey episode on Thursday, and from the fact that you say sciencey, you can know that I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking to. Luckily, we have two experts, and Eric is one of the foremost experts in the world on this stuff. So look forward to bringing you that one, guys. I will catch you next time. Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Listen. Shout out Teaser. You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've gotta let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.